You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
So Yianni Barakos from Mason Dixon Distillery, one of my favorite places to go. I don't get out there often enough, though. It's not my fault. It's just I have no time.
I understand what it's like to not have time.
But when I go there, I enjoy it thoroughly. The food is great. The booze is great. And yeah, I have nothing, no complaints about the place.
I'm blushing. Thank you.
I can see that. But really, I tell all of our followers and listeners when they ask, even at Gettysburg, when people say where to go and eat, I give them 3 choices, and Mason Dixon is always one of them.
That's appreciated. Word of mouth has been good to us, and it's how we've slowly but surely been able to build up the business.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been open?
Just over 3 years. July 1, 2016 was day one.
All right, and then before that, were you always into distilling, or how did you get into distilling?
So how I got into distilling, always been a tinker, hands-on kind of guy. I like to play with things, make things, take things apart, figure out how they work, try to put them back together. As I got older, I got better at putting them back together. But my story kind of begins before I was born. Second generation of my family born in this country. My grandparents all immigrated here from Greece.
Okay.
Tiny remote mountain villages, and I say my heritage is Greek, but more accurate is probably Greek hillbilly, because they grew what they needed. They repaired what they had. My grandfather I got to visit when I was a kid. One of my grandfather's villages. Came back, asked him a lot of questions about growing up. And at some point, he told me about how he used to work copper and would travel village to village and help repair copper pots and pans. Made him the de facto guy to help keep the still running. I had questions about this thing he described as a pot. I then ended up being given a simple diagram of a still on a cocktail napkin. And then I went home and started moonshining in my parents' garage.
Really?
Yes.
How old were you?
11.
So you're 11 years old, and from schematics on a napkin.
Correct.
You went and figured out how to make a still.
Yeah, had some gaps I had to fill in, because at one point my grandfather stopped answering questions, and his reason for stop answering because you're 11, you don't need to know anymore.
Yeah.
But I had garnered enough to be able to fill in the blanks.
So what was do you remember the first batch you made?
Yeah. I made Supero, which is Greek moonshine, which is made from grapes. It is pretty much the same thing as Italian grappa, just a different regional name.
And was it good?
Yeah, it was. So sidebar disclaimer, like I was an 11-year-old being like, well, I need my fix. I took great joy in building a machine that made something else.
Okay.
So yeah, I most of it ended up going to my grandfather and my great uncles, who were like, this is just like the stuff we used to have.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah.
Where'd you get the recipe?
My grandfather, but I improvised. Traditionally, you make the wine, take the leftover grape pieces, the pomace, the fruit pomace, and then you run that through the still. So I just got some Welch's grape juice.
Okay, so you used the Welch's grape juice to do it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's inventive, though.
Yep, Welch's grape juice and bread yeast.
All right, and then so 11 years, from 11 to 3 years ago, with age 30, what?
A lot.
I mean, did you go back to it at all at any point? Or?
So played with it a bunch for a couple years, kind of.
Like you must have been popular in high school.
So I wasn't like running shine like and I don't know that I really distilled that much in high school. I started making more beer in high school.
Okay.
I played it. A buddy of mine, I showed him how to build a still in college. We ran a couple little small batches, and when he was moving in the next year into the dorms, it was in a box in the hallway, and campus security saw it and confiscated it. They didn't know whose it was, and obviously nobody owned up to it. It was reported in the security blotter as that they confiscated a meth making rig. So we took there was some humor in that, and that kind of, we were like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be doing this at school.
Right. Where'd you go to school?
Washington and Jefferson, south of Pittsburgh, by the way.
Yeah, sure. And okay, so now you grew up here in Gettysburg?
I did not.
Okay, where'd you grow up?
So born in Hanover, there for a short time. York until I was 8, and then Northern Lancaster County, Denver, PA. We moved there for my father and his partner to open up a diner.
course.
Yeah.
Greek diner. Yeah.
50 style diner. My dad went to Baltimore Culinary Institute back in the day. He's a certified baking and pastry chef.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, and everybody there that owns a diner is Greek.
Yeah, I mean, go figure. Greek owning a diner.
Yeah. Well, but whatever. They all had money.
Yeah, the diner did well, but my father also, growing up, made sure I worked there, and I did the most miserable of tasks at the most inopportune of time to make sure that I wanted nothing to do with the restaurant as I grew up.
Which is what?
Which is what?
What did you do that's most...
Dishwashing, or if something, like there was a dumb waiter, and when it would break, you'd have to climb in the pit, or when the sump pump went out in the pit.
So you purposely volunteered for these, or he made you do that?
No, typically. I did half and half.
Okay.
So like I like work with my hands, I like fixing things, but also it would be like, you got to fix this tonight, and my response would be, but we have a school dance. And he'd be like, nope, tonight. Waking me up early to go. When I was younger, I would go in with him, and it was fun going to work with Dad. And then I got older, it was, sorry,
Sure.
Somebody called off, and I know you had plans, but your plans now are go wash dishes or brush tables or whatever.
It's for the family.
It is.
Yeah.
So I loved it, but and also really the part that I think, I guess probably many sons have this if they work for their fathers or with their fathers. The standards that anybody else performed their job to were not the same standards I was held to.
Right.
So, as a child growing up and figuring out the world, like that could present some challenges along the way. But to his credit, I think that's a big chunk of where my work ethic comes from today.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Right. No, it was probably a good thing. Because you think about it, then he to the non-relatives who worked for him, if he treated you better than them, that would look bad. So he's got to treat you worse, but in the end, you get a good work ethic.
Correct. Yeah. No, there was no son of the owner favors for sure.
Right.
But all in all, I think it was a good thing.
I worked for my dad, and the guys called me Uday. Okay. Because that was the time when we took down Saddam Hussein. Okay. And so you had all the stories about Uday and Qusay, his little brat sons. So that's what they called me, Uday.
Yeah, I think the bigger reason is he didn't want me to get into a restaurant because he knew what it's like. He knew it's like being self-employed, where all of the struggles are your own, and even when you go home, you're still working. And
exactly.
You're first there, last to leave, and he wanted better for me.
Yeah. And so you opened a restaurant.
Well, yeah, correct. So we ended up there, but that wasn't the plan. Went to college, worked a summer job for a general contractor out of Reading, Pennsylvania, and I loved it. I was low man on the totem pole. I was general labor, so I got all the crap work. But I discovered a position called project manager when I was there, and I fell in love because I thought it was the perfect marriage of people skills and mechanical skills. You had to understand how everything was going together, and then you had to get all these different subcontractors to work together to accomplish it. And then the icing on the cake for me was I thought it was a novelty because they worked 40 or 45 hours a week, and some definitely put some more hours in, but most of them were, I don't think anybody really usually regularly worked over 50 hours a week. And that to me seemed easy growing up watching a father working 80 to 100 hours a week.
Right.
And they got to have weekends. And generally when they clocked out at the end of the day, they got to go home. Nobody was calling them saying, hey, this broke or this person didn't show up. It was a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
So I remember the first time I went over, it was back in April, the first time I went to the distillery, and I brought a group of guys. We had done a walking tour on the battlefield, and you gave us a tour of the facilities. And you told us your story, your life story about the accident. You alluded to it before. Yep. Let's get to it now, because I remember afterwards I said, I want you to come on the podcast because I like that story. I'm a guy who, every once in a while, I start feeling down and low and down on myself and everything. And then I hear a story like that and I go, what the hell are you bitching about? Like, get off your ass and do it. So what is this story? What happened with this accident and how did it get you to where you are now?
So post-college, come full circle, ended up working.
Just real quick, talk right into that mic. But you can move it so that it's easier. You don't have to sit sideways.
I just might move my chair a little bit.
There you go. Move your chair. There you go. Sorry, I want people to hear this.
No, all good. So, So I had graduated college, bounced around for a little bit, trying to find a PM job. And eventually I was brought in as assistant project manager at the same general contractor. And I was excited, but assistant project manager meant you file all their papers. So it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do, but it was an opportunity. And I was told, give it a couple years. You got some stuff to learn. And ended up turning a couple years into a couple months. I was made a junior project manager and was over the moon, got my first project. Now I wasn't flying solo. It was closely guided, but 2 weeks after that promotion, I got into a car accident on the way to work. And that car accident effectively ended up putting me in bed for 2 years. In the middle of that roughly 2-year span, I was told that my best option would be to go on disability because you're just probably not going to be able to work again.
Now, what injuries did you sustain?
So tore some stuff in my shoulder, but that wasn't the cause of this. What happened and what took so long to find somebody that could know what was going on and put me on the path I needed to be on to get better, not whole, but better. It's called scapular dyskinesis, most often caused by trauma. And what it is that there's a nerve that comes out and fires like the 20-something different muscles that are attached to your scapula, your shoulder blade, and move it. Well, that nerve, due to the trauma, the signals just stop coming from my brain to move it.
Okay.
So that in and of itself doesn't sound terrible until you realize the effect it has on your body as a whole. So what happens is there is an accessory nerve that comes out from the very base of your skull and outside of your spine. Okay. That comes up, and its main job is to fire your upper trapezius. So what happened is that accessory nerve and that upper trapezius tried to stabilize my entire shoulder girdle. So what this means was the things in my back around my scapula that were trying to support that whole thing turned off. And instead, my upper trap was trying to do the job of those 20-something other muscles. So after the adrenaline wore off from the accident, I locked up with my right ear touching my right shoulder and couldn't move my neck.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So the body, being the wonderful, adaptable machine that it is, started to say, well, if you're pulling real hard to the right, what I can do is I can tighten you on the left side, and that'll get your head upright, which probably outwardly looked okay. But what it did was my neck was basically all the muscles were contracting as hard as they could. So that would crawl up into my head and kind of wrap around my ear and up into my eye. So I had this migraine that wouldn't go away. The mere act. So I was in pain all the time. I had this migraine that wouldn't go away. And then that was just laying down. When I tried to stand up and actually support my own head, it got even worse. And then that traveled down my back, like down the entirety of my spine. So it, instead of being a straight spine, it S-ed itself. So you got, I know the podcast listeners can't see this, so I'll try to, you got your right ear being pulled to your shoulder. So your body goes, let me contract that. Also, I shrank because we compressed my spine a little bit. So the left is trying to pull over, your shoulders are rock hard, your traps rock hard. And that's pulling into your thoracic spine, so the middle of your back. So that's doing weird things. That eventually gets into your low back. So now low back's trying to pull one way to compensate. It makes this huge body mechanics problem. So eventually in the middle of that, being stuck in bed, I decided I had a little bit left in me. I tell people I used to have a roaring fire in me prior to the car accident, and I was left with embers. And I stoked one of those embers and made one final push. Talked my way into seeing a doctor that wasn't currently taking patients at Hopkins. Okay.
You talked yourself into that. How'd you talk the doctor into?
Just not really taking no for an answer. And I think also on top, I decided I really needed to be an advocate for myself. Right. Yes. Because everybody else was just going to pass me off to them and be left with no answers for me. So I did some research, and I decided that Johns Hopkins, premier research hospital, East Coast, like if there's a doctor that's going to know something, it's going to be there. My pain there was physical abnormalities between my shoulder proper and my neck, like lumps, and I could feel it pulling. And literally one time I got a shot into one of the big lumps, and it momentarily, my muscle knots, and it momentarily released, and it was this wave of of normal. I was like, I think that's where the problem is. So I didn't fully understand, but I decided to shoulder doctors what I need.
Hello, Getty's nerds. It's Matt, and I hope you enjoyed that preview of our premium content that can now be found over at patreon.com. I just want to let you know that Addressing Gettysburg will always have free content for you to listen to in the forms of our narrative episodes like Antietam to Chancellorsville and the upcoming episode entitled Invasion, June 1863, appendix episodes, and our wildly popular Ask a Gettysburg Guide episodes. But episodes like Antietam to Chancellorsville take months to produce, as things are now. I hear from people almost every day asking how long until the next episode is finished. And the answer is, when I have the time, I can do it. Your support at Patreon can cut down the time it takes to produce an episode by months. Maybe you don't care about that. Maybe the Ask a Gettysburg Guide episodes are what you like, but they leave you wanting to learn more. Well, fear not. More is what Patreon is all about. Patrons receive access to new premium episodes each week. These episodes are straight interviews or discussions with licensed battlefield guides, rangers, local historians, academics, authors, public historians, people from the Gettysburg community who do impressive things, and frankly, just about anyone who can talk on a subject related to Gettysburg. I want to make sure that the interest you already have in Gettysburg is enriched with our premium content. Your support means the world to me, because that means it will be easier to produce content that will bring Gettysburg to more people and, hopefully, more people to Gettysburg. And the podcast episodes are just the beginning. So please go to patreon.com/addressinggettysburg. That's patreon.com/addressinggettysburg and become a patron. I thank you in advance.